Welcome to Wisdom Planet, wisdom worth spreading. Happy listening. The book I am going to tell you about today is Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned. Written by Kenneth Stanley and Joel Lehman. The subtitle is The Myth of the Objective. Just hearing the names of these two authors, Stanley and Lehman, you may feel unfamiliar, but if we talk about the company they work for, you may feel a deep respect. Both of them are researchers at OpenAI. As we all know, in November 2022, OpenAI launched the famous artificial intelligence language training model, ChatGPT, which can perform challenging tasks such as answering questions, translating texts, summarizing information, and even writing manuscripts with fluent and natural language, almost at a human level. Stanley and Lehman are the core scientists of the ChatGPT development team. In a sense, this book, Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned, can be seen as a summary and sublimation of Lehman and Stanley's own technical exploration and innovative methodology. However, what Lehman and Stanley want to discuss is not their experience in developing ChatGPT, nor even the path of artificial intelligence technology development, but rather the underlying logic of how to achieve innovation and breakthroughs in this rapidly advancing era of technology. It is highly disruptive and forward-thinking. Therefore, we recommend it to you today. In our common understanding, innovative research in science and technology follows a linear logic. Researchers first set a goal, then through theoretical assumptions and experiments, step by step, eliminate errors, advance towards the goal, and ultimately overcome all difficulties and reach the peak of victory. However, is this really the case? Surprisingly, the two authors tell you right at the beginning of this book that this viewpoint is wrong, and very wrong indeed. Stanley and Lehman said that in their long-term research on artificial intelligence algorithm optimization, they have come to a realization: in the field of modern science and technology, truly great breakthroughs are not the result of careful planning in advance. For example, the most recent large-scale technological innovation project that was successful, led by top-level design and goal-oriented, was the Apollo moon landing program led by the U.S. government in the 1960s and 1970s, and there have been no similar cases since then. In other words, any innovation and breakthrough is not like climbing a mountain, where you follow a predetermined route towards a clear and visible goal. Instead, it is like searching for treasure in a dense foggy swamp. The goal is unknown, the route is uncertain, and the task of the treasure hunter is to find stepping stones and explore as large an area as possible, and then see what valuable little things are found in the explored area. Of course, in the field of scientific innovation, the term invaluable does not always mean that it can immediately be converted into economic benefits. Stanley and Lehman explain that in scientific exploration, the value of any theory, solution, material, or technology is often linked to its novelty, as novelty is the key. Paul Graham, a genius programmer and venture capitalist known as the father of Silicon Valley, once said that in the high-tech field, excellent research may not necessarily be good, but it must be new. Similarly, excellent product design may not necessarily be new, but it must be good. Only by using fresh creativity and theories can revolutionary products emerge and solve problems that previous generations were unable to solve. Why say this? Because novelty implies the expansion of our cognitive boundaries, more new information, allowing our existing cognitive structures to upgrade and become more complex. Ultimately, in this seemingly aimless scientific treasure hunt, breakthrough technologies or solutions that surpass human capabilities and possess crushing iterative power are bound to emerge. Speaking of this, I believe you have already developed a certain interest and expectation for the content of this book. So, next, I will divide it into two parts to explain the main content of this book to you. First, let's take a look at why detailed goals and overly specific plans can hinder breakthroughs and innovation in the field of cutting-edge technology. Secondly, let's follow the thinking of Stanley and Lehman to explore how to achieve breakthroughs and innovation in today's rapidly developing technology and the prevailing trend of interdisciplinary research. Part 1. First, let's take a look at why the authors Stanley and Lehman argue that setting clear goals is not an effective method in the exploration of high technology. Instead, it narrows the search field for explorers and provides incorrect ideas and directions for progress. In daily learning and work, we are constantly told that having goals gives us motivation and a sense of purpose. The so-called plan before action means that by setting and breaking down ultimate goals, we can develop detailed and precise action and learning plans, making continuous progress and self-improvement. Not only that, everyone also believes that from small enterprises and various organizations to society, countries, and even the entire biosphere and natural environment, their existence and development are also for some predetermined ultimate goals, such as survival and evolutionary advancement. Once the goals are lost, whether as individuals or as a collective society or nature, they will fall into stagnation, chaos, and confusion. Of course, Stanley and Lehman said that this goal-oriented approach is reasonable and effective in general. However, in rapidly advancing fields such as science, technology innovation filled with high risks and uncertainties, and even in the field of art, many principles of goal-oriented approach become ineffective. Why does this situation occur? Stanley and Lehman say that those high-level goals, due to their complexity and the multitude of information variables involved, cannot immediately produce a feasible implementation and solution due to the limitations of existing technology and theory. Therefore, it is impossible to draw a clear action roadmap as imagined. Stanley and Lehman say that in reality, breakthroughs in cutting-edge technology and science are more like a treasure hunt. We have to slowly explore in a huge, dark, structurally complex room or swamp filled with objects. And the desired outcome or reward is likely hidden in a corner, mixed with a pile of seemingly unrelated things. For example, there is a pile of technologies such as fire use, wheels, and bows and arrows, which are necessary for early human entry into agricultural settled civilization, while in the distance, there are technologies such as personal computers and fiber optics that are necessary for human entry into the information age, and so on. We must slowly grope forward in the dark, make marks, and determine which areas have been explored and which areas have not. If it is a swamp, we also need to find stepping stones that help us continue forward in order to reach further places. Even among these scattered treasures, there are close connections between many objects. You can only obtain valuable clues about where B or C is by discovering A. In this case, the more you set a detailed and specific goal, and develop a meticulous and precise plan, the more difficult it is to achieve the goal. Looking back at the history of human technological inventions, we can find many similar cases. For example, the everyday household appliance, the microwave oven. We would think that there must be a consumer electronics company or an inventor who wanted to create a convenient and quick food heater, and then devoted themselves to inventing a low-energy and safe heating technology, ultimately choosing electromagnetic waves. However, in reality, the history of human use of electromagnetic wave devices is much longer than the history of our use of microwave ovens. As early as the 1920s and 1930s, magnetrons that could continuously and stably emit electromagnetic waves were manufactured for radar detection devices, and were continuously improved during World War II. It was not until 1946 that an engineer named Spencer from the American military-industrial company Raytheon, during radar testing, accidentally discovered that the chocolate in his pocket melted because it was too close to the equipment. This was when he realized the wonderful use of electromagnetic waves for heating food. For example, data storage is crucial for the development of computers. However, the invention and application of data storage technology actually originated from the textile industry. As early as the 18th century, there was a French mechanic and inventor named Jacquard who conceived an invention that allowed a loom to weave complex patterns quickly, punched cards. Prior to this, in order to weave fabrics with complex patterns, a dedicated draftsman was needed to manually control the overlapping of different colored yarns based on the pattern, which was laborious and inefficient. As a result, the production of fabrics with complex patterns was low and expensive. The function of punched cards was equivalent to primitive computer control programs. The specific process involved placing a stack of punched cards on the loom's baseboard. When the weaving needle encountered a hole on the card, it would pass through and lift the yarn, allowing other vertical yarns to pass through from below. Therefore, a set of cards with holes punched at different positions could precisely control when each specific weaving needle would lift, enabling the rapid weaving of fabrics with complex patterns. In the 19th century, the concept of punched cards caught the attention of British mathematician Babbage. He believed that since punched cards could store the printed patterns of fabrics, they could also record complex numerical calculation patterns and be applied to early mechanical computers, allowing the computers to perform complex numerical operations according to a program. In the 1940s and 1950s, when early electronic computers emerged, scientists discovered that early computer programs could be translated into a set of binary codes, stored on punched cards, and read and executed by the computer. So you see, if we were to review it, many of the so-called stepping stones to major technological advances or innovations are discovered by humans exploring seemingly unrelated fields. The original application scenarios of these stepping stones have nothing to do with the lofty goals they eventually achieve. Stanley and Lehman even proposed a hypothesis that avid readers of online literature are likely familiar with. If a group of modern IT engineers and scientists were to travel back in time and gather the smartest people of that era, would they be able to form a project team and create a computer using a goal-oriented approach? The answer is definitely no. On the surface, the bottleneck the project team would encounter is the lack of infrastructure and raw materials to build a computer, from electricity and industrial machinery to pure silicon, which simply did not exist in ancient times. However, the deeper reason is that ancient people could not imagine the purpose of creating such a machine. It is evident that only when human economic and scientific research activities reach a certain level of complexity will the technological materials necessary for building computers emerge. At the same time, humans will also realize the need for a machine with supercomputing and information processing capabilities. Not only that, but overly specific but distant goals can also be highly misleading, leading us down the wrong path of exploration or research. In their book, Stanley and Lehman give an example. Suppose you now become a creator, holding a planet identical to Earth in terms of environment. There are already some simple single-celled organisms here. What kind of evolutionary breeding strategy should be adopted to give birth to highly intelligent beings similar to humans on this planet? Stanley and Lehman said that if we follow our usual goal-oriented strategy, then our strategy should be to persist in measuring the intelligence of all single-celled organisms, and then select those with the highest intelligence for mating and reproduction. Of course, hearing this logic is correct, but the actual absurd answer would surely make everyone laugh. If we deconstruct the essence of intelligence and the process of biological evolution from the perspective of neuroscience, we will find that the birth of highly intelligent beings is not the goal of natural evolution at all. At best, it is just a byproduct of the evolutionary process. First, let's take a look at what the essence of wisdom is. Biologist and science writer Wang Liming once said that wisdom is the pattern of interaction between individuals and their environment, capturing information, accumulating experience, and then summarizing patterns to improve strategies and skills in response. In simple terms, wisdom is a kind of learning ability. From a neurobiological perspective, learning is the process in which the nerve cells within an organism establish connections and resonance through signal transmission. So, how can early Earth organisms improve their learning efficiency? The most convenient method is to have a sufficient number of nerve cells in the body, while also increasing the total amount of information exchange within a unit of time. Therefore, complex organisms composed of multiple cells have a crushing advantage over single-celled organisms. However, the primary driving force behind the evolution from single-celled to multi-celled organisms was not the development of advanced intelligence, but rather survival. The reason for this is simple. In a time when there were few species and similar forms, the larger an organism's size, the lower the risk of being eaten, and it could even become a predator at the top of the food chain. At the same time, being a multicellular organism has another advantage. The cells in the body can specialize according to their own expertise, allowing the collective to handle multiple tasks simultaneously, including movement, reproduction, and energy production, among others. British theoretical physicist Geoffrey Turner once wrote a book called Scale, in which he proposed a Kleiber's law. The larger the volume and complexity of a biological organism, the lower the energy consumption required to sustain its operation. Specifically, for every doubling of scale, there is a 25% surplus. Therefore, in order to survive better, organisms need to increase the complexity of their structures and achieve the scale effect. The emergence of highly intelligent beings, such as humans, is just an unexpected treasure found in this exploration of the swamp. In the words of the authors Stanley and Lehman, competition in natural evolution is not all-encompassing. Each species does not need to achieve overall optimality, but can instead reach local optimality within its own ecological niche. It can even generate its own ecological niche through accidental mutations. Therefore, once all organisms possess the basic abilities of survival and reproduction, evolution becomes a typical non-purposeful exploration. In other words, when the evolution of organisms gives rise to complex forms such as humans and other mammals, competition among different species begins to occur within their respective ecological niches. Humans, who are not fast runners or physically strong, have evolved complex brain structures to compete against other animals. Therefore, the reason why nature can create highly intelligent alternative beings like humans in the process of evolution is precisely because it did not make the birth of a human-level brain its goal. The same situation often occurs in the scenario where scientists train artificial intelligence, giving rise to countless laughable and tear-inducing situations. Stanley and Lehman gave an example of their own artificial intelligence training. First, they set up a flat maze, and then trained a robot to successfully navigate the maze and reach the exit. Surprisingly, if the algorithm is set to reach the exit as quickly as possible, the robot actually progresses slowly because it always follows the principle of prioritizing the goal and tries to plan the most efficient route directly to the door. However, the routes that we humans consider reasonable are judged by the robot as incorrect, because they deviate from the goal at certain moments and move away from the door. This causes the robot to always rush towards the exit and collide with the walls of the maze from the very beginning. You see, through this small computer experiment, the principle of prioritizing the goal leads to incorrect solution paths is clearly demonstrated. So how can we achieve innovation and breakthroughs? Stanley and Lehman say that first, we need to set a fundamental logic for our exploration or research, which is to treat it as an interesting and novel exploration as much as possible. We should temporarily shift our focus away from so-called great and distant goals, and instead turn towards the visible range around us, where hidden treasures may be buried, and the stepping stones to unfamiliar territories. Speaking of this, some people may ask, is it really reliable to pursue novelty? It sounds aimless and difficult to control. Can scientific research or technological innovation be guided by this principle? Stanley and Lehman say, don't worry. Firstly, exploring the unknown is the most fundamental driving force behind human continuous evolution and civilization development. Even if we ultimately fail, our efforts to pursue new theories and solutions will gain valuable experience and data, which is more valuable than following established plans. To prove this point, Stanley and Lehman narrate in their book an artificial intelligence virtual experiment they conducted, with the aim of teaching a robot with human-like legs to walk. In the algorithm they wrote for the robot, the primary objective was not for it to walk on its legs as quickly as possible, but rather to encourage the robot to perform novel movements using its legs. Surprisingly, when the algorithm was set to encourage the robot to perform novel behaviors, it learned to walk in a much shorter time compared to when the goal was set to learn to walk as quickly as possible. Why is this? It turns out that if the robot is set to learn to walk as quickly as possible, falling down is considered a bad thing in the algorithm logic, and the robot will try to avoid falling, but this also limits its ability to experiment with different walking postures. However, if the priority is given to novel actions, the robot initially tries various ways of falling, but in this process, it gradually learns to kick its legs and swing its body, which are the foundations for walking on two legs. Sometimes, even purely playful behavior by researchers can lead to unexpected technological breakthroughs. For example, the 3D printing technology, which is said to lead the next industrial revolution. In 1995, Jim Brett, who was still a graduate student at MIT, and his friend Anderson were pulled into a research group by their advisor to study how to improve the nozzle of a concrete sprayer. However, Brett found that the nozzle was always clogged, probably due to problems with the concrete mixture. Since it wasn't his responsibility to fix it, he thought, why not use the nozzle to create something interesting? So, he and Anderson obtained various materials from a grocery store, from icing sugar and cake mix to shredded cheese, and then sprayed these materials to form solids. Then, they had a brilliant idea to connect the nozzle to a printer, which allowed them to print various three-dimensional letters. In the end, this revolutionary invention obtained a patent from MIT and received a startup funding of $7 million. Even when a creative or innovative idea cannot determine its specific application scenario, or even when its functionality is not yet complete, those explorers with keen insight can still sense intuitively that this is a significant stepping stone that will greatly push the boundaries of their own understanding. For example, as we mentioned earlier, the Silicon Valley pioneer Graham, who once led the development of the world's first internet application via web. Graham said that for a genius programmer or hacker, even if only a part of the program can run, it means that there is still hope and worth continuing to invest effort in improving it. In fact, many inspirations in program writing arise while writing and contemplating. If you insist on creating a perfect plan and blueprint without starting the actual work, you will miss out on many brilliant ideas that could have been born. When ViaWeb was just born, those venture capitalists who came to visit would always ask Graham, "What are your plans for the next 6 months?" Graham's answer was often, "We don't have specific plans, but we will make any best improvements to the program that we can think of." In the eyes of Stanley and Lehman, in this era of rapid technological advancement and cross-disciplinary integration in various fields of technology, the most likely to make significant discoveries and achievements are those treasure seekers who have wide-ranging interests, sensitive instincts, and always maintain an open-minded attitude towards new things and theories. They often have multiple skills and continuously explore the unknown in their areas of interest, constantly wandering, building stepping stones for themselves and future generations, leaving their own marks of "I was here," and ultimately making breakthroughs in unexpected technologies or time points. Graham is a typical treasure seeker, although he prefers to call himself a pirate. Graham studied philosophy at Cornell University, but deeply felt that he should engage in something related to technology that directly changes the world. So, during his graduate studies, he went to the computer science department at Harvard University. However, when he truly began to study programming and artificial intelligence theory, Graham, who had a wandering mind, became fascinated with visual arts again. During his holidays, he started studying painting at the famous Rhode Island School of Design. Graham summed up that the benefit of simultaneously exploring multiple fields is a comprehensive big-picture perspective. For example, painting and programming are actually connected at a fundamental logical level. They both require insight, precision, starting from user needs, possessing aesthetics, but at the same time, they also have openness and can be modified and optimized at any time. However, Stanley and Lehman remind us in their book that those seemingly eureka moments and strokes of genius in the history of science are never accidental. They are simply the result of individuals who, through long and arduous exploration, have discovered countless stepping stones, unknowingly coming closer to this mysterious treasure. For example, even if the story of Newton and the apple is true, it only serves to illustrate that the falling apple was the final stepping stone that led Newton to create the law of universal gravitation. Prior to this, Newton had already dedicated years of intensive research in the fields of mathematics and astrophysics. The phenomenon of the falling apple had been witnessed by countless people, but only Newton was able to connect it to the gravitational force between celestial bodies. Ultimately, this stemmed from Newton's keen observational skills and open-mindedness, developed through years of study. Okay, the general content of this book, Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned, has been introduced to you here. The two authors, Stanley and Lehman, can be said to have simplified the complex, without using too many artificial intelligence professional terms, or even presenting any mathematical formulas. Instead, they use humorous and down-to-earth language to show us a completely different technological innovation landscape and methodology. Do not be confined to goals, do not rigidly set specific plans, but rather let interest be the lasting motivation and adopt a mindset of exploring and discovering treasures. This is the underlying logic to reach greatness and success. In this book, Stanley and Lehman have devoted a considerable amount of space to present numerous real cases in the history of scientific innovation, in order to demonstrate the various drawbacks that goal-oriented thinking can bring in the field of high technology, such as narrow vision and incorrect method paths. The excessive emphasis on goal orientation is particularly prominent in the field of artificial intelligence, which the two authors deeply explore. For example, does a universally applicable artificial intelligence solution really exist? When it comes to understanding human language, should artificial intelligence leverage the advantages of existing algorithms and utilize increasingly vast databases for deep learning? Or should it take a completely different approach and attempt to think like humans, understanding the logical relationships behind various language concepts? It seems that in the foreseeable future, these questions will not have clear answers. At the same time, Stanley and Lehman also expressed their opinions on some drawbacks in the innovation system of high-tech companies in the United States today. They believe that the obsession with quickly achieving a specific technological innovation and immediate profitability is leading the once vibrant high-tech industry in the United States astray. On one hand, technologies that may not have immediate utility but could lead to significant breakthroughs are not receiving attention and funding. On the other hand, many technologies that appear promising but are far from mature and lack clear application scenarios are quickly becoming speculative bubbles due to capital-driven hype. Although Stanley and Lehman's criticism is focused on the United States, some of their viewpoints are also worth considering for China's current development. The strategy of reliable breakthroughs in specific research areas can be achieved as long as a large amount of funding is invested has been proven to carry serious risks and uncertainties. Conversely, aimless exploration may seem undesirable, but it aligns with the essence of scientific exploration. So, Stanley and Lehman, with the help of this book, make an appeal to all those who are ready to explore the unknown world and advance the forefront of technology. They urge people not to blindly focus on the distance, but to pay attention to what is around them, every stepping stone beneath their feet. Although these stepping stones may only lead temporarily to another, we must believe that it is the chain of innovation formed by these stepping stones that is the correct path to the land of great discoveries. Above is the essence of this book's content. Congratulations on finishing another book. Thank you for your support. Please subscribe to our Wisdom Planet audiobook channel. Like and share it with family and friends. Wisdom worth spreading and opening up a better future. Thank you and see you again.